Firstly, I want to acknowledge we're on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and I'm here to comment today on the federal government's decision to proceed with the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Although I'm disappointed with the decision, I had a conversation with the Prime Minister this morning, and I reiterated our concerns about the consequences of a catastrophic marine spill and the impact that would have on not just our marine environment, but our economy here in British Columbia. However, I also reiterated that from the beginning, my government has taken a consistent and balanced approach, constantly respectful of the rule of law. Firstly, we joined in a pre-existing legal case, what was known as then the Tsleil-Waututh case, which you will know is the reason we had a reassessment of the Indigenous consultation component of the National Energy Board process. The court found in favor of the Tsleil-Waututh, and we've had over the past number of months discussions going forward between the federal government, the Tsleil-Waututh and other Indigenous peoples, as well as what I would characterize as an abridged review of the consequences of a marine spill. The first National Energy Board process did not, I repeat, did not take into consideration the consequences of a 7-fold increase in tanker traffic from here through the Salish Sea and the Strait of Juan de Fuca. The potential consequences to our marine environment were serious. We made that case. We continue to make that case. When questions were raised about our jurisdiction and our ability to manage substances coming in and out of British Columbia, we did what I believe was the reasonable thing. We asked the federal government to join with us and refer the matter to the Supreme Court of Canada. At that time, the federal government declined, and we went to the Court of Appeal here. Although we were unsuccessful in our appeal, we have made application to go directly to the Supreme Court, and I believe that's what British Columbians would want us to do. This is not just about this project, it's about protecting provincial jurisdiction and ensuring that the government of British Columbia can do everything in its power to protect those things that are so important to British Columbians. While we have entered into court actions, we have been responsibly issuing permits as they've been requested, doing our due diligence, and George will speak to that briefly, but doing what we can to ensure that we're protecting the public interest while not obstructing duly approved projects. We've stood principally to protect those things that matter to not just British Columbians, but in fact all Canadians. We'll continue to do that. I believe it's my job as the Premier of British Columbia to always be vigilant to protect those things that matter to British Columbians, and I'll continue to do that. Although I regret the federal government's decision, it is within their authority to make that decision. It's now up to George and I, and the Governor of British Columbia, to make sure as this project proceeds, we have no impacts on our marine life, we have no impact on our natural environment, and we do not put at risk one of the hottest economies in the country, an economy that's working for all British Columbians, not just a select few. Thanks very much, and I'll have George say a few things.
Thank you, Premier. Good afternoon, everyone. Our government continues to maintain that the TMX project poses very significant risks to our environment, to our coast, and to our economy. And we continue to assert that there are potentially catastrophic consequences of a diluted bitumen spill. Tens of thousands of British Columbians' jobs are at risk, and billions of dollars of economic activity are also at risk. Today's decision was the federal government's decision to make, and that's never been in question. We also note that a number of Indigenous governments have raised the possibility of new legal challenges to the federal government's second approval of this project. That will be their decision to make. But we know that British Columbians continue to be deeply concerned over a 7-fold increase in tanker traffic in the Salish Sea. They are deeply concerned about the consequences of a catastrophic oil spill to our environment and to the jobs and economic benefits for British Columbians that depend on the marine environment. So let me say to British Columbians who value our environment, who cherish our coast, who expect their government to stand up for their interests, we will not abandon our responsibility to protect our land and our water. We'll continue to stand up and defend our environment, our coast, and the tens of thousands of jobs that are dependent on them.